Well, with fewer than 100 days to go until election day, we continue our conversation with various candidates for various public offices. And today we're having a conversation with Phil Foust. Phil is the Republican candidate for the Marion County Prosecutor's race. Now, some folks are wondering, well, Abdul, why are you talking to him? It's like, well, he's a candidate, number one. And number two, as Marion County is a city state government, and all things been going on in the state government these days, it's the Marion County Prosecutor who would probably overlooking a lot of that. Either that or a grand jury or both. Take your pick. So, Phil, thank you for joining us. And by the way, first question, what the hell are you thinking? Don't you got anything else better to do?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Abdul. I'm excited to be pursuing this. I got to tell you, I love Indianapolis. I grew up here, and I am bullish on the city overall. And I just, unfortunately, like many people, I'm fed up with what I think are soft on crime policies from a failed prosecutor that are really holding back a lot of potential for the city I love. And I also love a lot about that office in particular. The prosecutor's office means a lot to me. It's where I cut my teeth as a trial attorney, and where I uh, kind of feel a sacred duty to justice. It might sound corny, but many of us there from across the political spectrum uh, view it as something that should be handled very, very uh, delicately. There's a lot of power in that office. It's important that it be done with justice in mind, and I just couldn't sit back any longer and stay silent.
Well, let's go ahead and start. Tell the audience a little bit about your background.
Yeah, Abdul, I was born in northern Indiana, Winamac area. My parents were hog farmers at the time, but I don't remember any of that life. So I'm a city boy, um, in contrast to them. But then grew up in Pike Township. My mom raised me. She was put herself through nursing school. Uh, then I went to IUPUI for undergrad, and during that time, I worked at our state school for the blind, which had a huge impact on my view on life. Happy to talk about that more at some point if you'd like. And then went away to law school at Harvard, which was a great experience. And then spent a few years at an international law firm. I had a variety of cases, but my biggest ones were investigating in international banks. So even then, there was a more of a prosecutorial bent to my work. I knew that I wanted to be a prosecutor. So while I was in law school, I had interned under Carl Brizzi, who was a Republican. And then when I came back, Terry Curry was prosecutor, and Terry was kind enough to overlook our political differences. Um, and I started out in juvenile there and worked my way all the way up through homicides. And again, worked with a lot of people who just, many people who didn't care about politics, many people who were on the right, many people who were on the left, but they all came together under Terry's leadership because he understood that the basic assignment was to enforce the law. He maintained a great relationship with police, and I think he cared deeply about public safety and justice. And while I'm sure he was a great Democrat and we disagreed on many policy issues, he understood that office needed to be more than just about politics.
Phil, let me ask you. Obviously, working under Carl Brizzi, working under Terry Curry, both gentlemen who I knew extremely well. Uh, what do you think that kind of added the sort of Brizzi prosecutorial philosophy versus the Curry prosecutorial philosophy? How did that sort of help you develop your own philosophy toward crime and justice, whether it be crime and justice for making sure that victims are respected, but also make sure folks get due process?
Right. Well, I was an intern only under Brizzy, so can't say that I had the big picture there at all. But I do believe that he took a pretty tough on crime approach, and I think that Terry, from what I could see, brought a real commitment to playing it straight, the public. So he wanted, I think it was very important to him that people across the political aisle felt like they were dealing with a prosecutor who was going to treat them fairly regardless of any political underlying issues, and that he was going to really enforce a commitment to integrity in that office. I think that both of them had a pretty good reputation for dealing with police as well as with victims. And those are both things that I think have gone astray under Ryan Mears' leadership.
Phil Foust with us. He's a Republican candidate for Marion County Prosecutor. He'll be on the ballot as well as Ryan Mears. With the election just less than 100 days and so a change to go. So we're talking to various candidates. And Dave, we're fortunate to have some time with Phil as he spent some time with us. Phil, if you were to become prosecutor, what would your philosophy be?
Yeah. Well, I think that the prosecutor's office is so important, but it's also a limited role. So I think it's important to be focused on the basics there. So we need to restore the core mission there of enforcing the law, seeking justice for victims, and protecting the public. And Abdul, that's honestly quite a full day's work in and of itself, rather than allowing ourselves to be distracted by ideological pet projects. In particular, I think that what we need to do right now, one of our biggest issues is to focus on juvenile crime. We have to address that head on. We cannot afford to stick our head in the sand any longer about that. The clearest indicator of the path that we're on, you want to see the future of our city, you should look at the crimes being committed by our teenagers today. And that's a 5-alarm fire in my mind, Abdul. We are seeing teenagers, unfortunately, who have absolutely no respect and no fear of the juvenile justice system. It's a complete joke in their mind. The repercussions of that have moved from, we were seeing auto thefts and things like that, and now we're seeing carjackings. We're seeing teens in high-speed car chases with police. We're seeing them in shootouts with police. And unfortunately, we're seeing them kill and be killed. Luckily, if there is some silver lining, we're seeing more non-fatal shootings than fatal shootings right now. But unfortunately, if we just keep cycling these teenagers through the system, in 3 or 4 years, their aim's only going to be better. And I don't think we're going to like the consequences that we see.
You bring up an interesting point on juvenile crime and juvenile violence, because obviously, while crime is technically down overall, you're right, you're absolutely correct, there's some disturbing trends in the juvenile sphere.
Yeah. And it's unfortunately the direct result of in my view, a failure from the prosecutor. Now, there's lots of actors to blame, and that system as a whole, unfortunately, and I think for good reason, we wanted to protect and provide some anonymity to juvenile offenders, right? No one wants, a 12-year-old who steals bubble gum from a store to be branded for life as a criminal, right? But that impulse, unfortunately, has led to a system that's not transparent at all. If you wanted to right now, Abdul, as a member of press, you can't go and watch a juvenile day of court. And I think if your readers and listeners, we selected 12 of them, jury, right? We brought them down to juvenile court for a day, their jaws would drop. People, I think, have an inkling of how radical and off the mark that system has been allowed to go, and it's worse than what they believe. It is I think few people would have comfort with a system where just because you're 16 or 17 and haven't turned 18 and you are found in someone else's house, right? Whether it's a burglary or what we would call a residential entry, and then you're back out on the street the next day. These are dangerous games that we're allowing these teenagers to play, and we're not doing them any favors by coddling them, by teaching them that there are no consequences, that they don't have to fear the justice system at all. So I think that, unfortunately, that system needs a lot of sunlight. It needs a prosecutor who's going to make it clear to everyone else, the public, what's going on there, and bring some pressure to bear.
Ryan Foust, our guest on the program today. Ryan is the Republican candidate for Marion County Prosecutor. Talking about the office and sort of crime in the city of Indianapolis, also crime how it impacts the donut counties and to a certain degree the rest of the state. Ryan, on that issue of juvenile crime and juvenile violence, is it two things? Number one, what about parental accountability? We hear that a lot. We need to hold the parents accountable. In your opinion, number one, what does that mean? And number two, maybe a bit more, radical bit of thinking. It's a time to sort of throughout the criminal justice system for juveniles, maybe sort of start all over again.
Yeah. So a couple of things on that. You're never going to hear me say that parents shouldn't be accountable, but as far as the criminal law is concerned, as we know, that there are very limited circumstances in which a parent would be held criminally liable for the actions of their teenagers. Um, that's a product of you would be looking at how old they are and what other additional circumstances were at play that provided something more than just being a bad parent as the basis for criminal liability there. But that doesn't mean that we can't try, around the edges to provide some tougher enforcement on our curfew ordinances and truancy and whatnot. But I don't want to in any way lead your viewers and readers to believe that somehow there's a magic pill there. With regards to throwing out the entire system, I'm open to some radical changes to that system. I think the biggest first step, though, is transparency. People just don't have insight into what's happening there. And it's bleeding over and people are starting to understand because of the headlines and things like that. But we have to make it very apparent. And you can still do this within, the confines of maintaining some anonymity, right? You can anonymize the data and whatnot, but provide kind of pseudonyms or whatnot for different offenders. But people need to understand how crazy and off base that system has gotten. And a lot of it sits at the feet of the prosecutor. When the prosecutor's not pushing back within a system where much is hidden, things get skewed very far one direction. And we need a prosecutor, not a defense attorney in prosecutor's clothing.
Right. One of the things, Phil, that also has popped up in the conversation has been, and this is some of the pushback I'll get from folks who maybe sort of from a different political philosophy when it comes to criminal justice and enforcement, is you can't just lock everybody up. Now, we used to have 3 strikes and you're out, truth in sentencing, but at the end of the day, we just got more crime. But it takes a more holistic, comprehensive approach to really going after the worst offenders. As a friend of mine once said, there's people we're mad at versus people we're afraid of.
Right. Couple things. One, I think it's important that we really look stuff squarely in the face here. So there's some hard truths that we need to address here in Marion County, and we shouldn't allow ourselves to kind of be lulled by comfortable lies. So in this county, there is not an over-incarceration problem. It is far from that. The hard truth is that a small, very small number of criminals commit a very large number of crimes. And we are not doing society any favors by pretending otherwise. There are people that can be rehabilitated, and we should rehabilitate them. And there are people who can be deterred but not rehabilitated, and we can deter them by significant sticks, right? By significant sentences that they would be facing. And then there are those who can either be rehabilitated or deterred, and they have to be incarcerated. They have to be separated from the rest of society so as to protect people who are law-abiding from people who will not be deterred. And we can't blink when it comes to that. There are people who are cycled through our system, I'm sure you're very aware of this, who have made it readily apparent that they're not going to accept help, that they want to live in a way that has dramatic consequences for everyone around them. And we're talking violent offenders. The idea that we are currently addressing that, I think is not backed up by the reality. We know that we have sentencing enhancements that are being underutilized, whether that's habitual offender or gang enhancements. These are tools that I would use within my first 100 days in office. We would be reevaluating the treatment of those sort of core offenders, that repeat group that's well known to IMPD, well known to law enforcement broadly, and they need to be faced with much more severe consequences for the protection of society for future victims.
Phil, when you talk to police officers, men and women on the street who put their lives on the line for us every day, what do you hear from them?
Yeah, I hear a few recurring themes. One is that the relationship with IMPD, in particular, and the prosecutor's office is at an all-time low. Now, I've known it wasn't great for some time, but it has moved from, not well functioning to absolute antagonism. And we are seeing, unfortunately, a complete breakdown in communications where officers are not getting basic responses that they need from the prosecutor's office. And this goes all the way back to when Ryan first took over from Terry. It surprised a lot of us how quickly he sent a signal to the police that he was not going to partner with them, but instead he was going to have an adversarial relationship with them. I'll give you a couple of specific examples. One is he pulled all the prosecutors out of the districts, and this has had, unfortunately, a very negative impact. When you have IMPD down 300 or 400 officers, there's going to be a lot of new detectives and they need to be able to walk down the hall, talk to a prosecutor, and learn how to make a case better and get feedback. And they're not getting that. Another example, we have a weekly violence prevention task force that includes members of community corrections, juvenile probation, adult probation, often many of the alphabet agencies from the federal level, if it's pertinent at that point. Obviously, police and sheriff, and the prosecutor's office just doesn't attend. And in a county this size, public safety requires teamwork. And right now, the police are not getting that from the prosecutor's office.